Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Today we're doing something a little bit different, just with everything going on in our world today, with the Black Lives Matter movement and the demonstrations that have been going on. I wanted to talk to these two fine gentlemen, Nuke and Hafeez, who have really helped me open my eyes to what's important and to things that I haven't seen, and have done so in a very safe way, making me feel safe to ask questions and be curious. And so I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and ask them some of the questions that I specifically have been wondering, and I have seen from some other people. So I guess if you guys quickly could just start by talking about some of a little bit of your background. Where you guys are from, and then any experiences that you guys have had with any sort of racism or prejudice or whatever it might be.
Hafeez, you have the floor.
Okay. All right. So my background. Nuke and I are cousins. So my parents are from Ghana originally. I was born and raised in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia. Immigrated to Canada back in '96. So I've had a diverse upbringing through my experiences through growing up in the Middle East, and living in Calgary most of my life. So I've always been surrounded by different cultures and different backgrounds. So that's been my background. So in terms of racism and police brutality, in terms of my experience, it's been more on the subtle side. Here in Canada, there's a term called smiling racism. So that is something that I've experienced, as well as being profiled by the police. I've been pulled over because I fit a description. One experience, I remember I dropped off my sister at the bus stop, and I was just waiting for her, to get on the bus, make sure she's safe, big brother kind of things, And I was just in my car, I was just on my phone, and then this police van rolls up behind me. I see that, I'm like, I'm not doing anything, so no need to panic. Suddenly the sirens go on. And then immediately, I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And then they come to my door, and then they said license and registration. And, so I immediately pull all the information and everything. And they're like, oh, what are you doing here? Like, what's they started asking me these questions, and I'm just politely being like, hey, my sister's over there. I just dropped her off. I just want to make sure that she gets into her bus. She's safe. Right. And then they just said, okay, we'll be right back. And then they come back, after 5 minutes or so. And I asked, what's the problem? It's like, we'll get back to you. They didn't even, it was very, very, very dismissive in that way. So I'm just, staying calm because I know I didn't do anything. At the same time, my heart's racing. I'm like, this is what's going on. So then they come back, and then I ask again, officer, what's the problem? What's the issue? I'd like to know. And then they said, oh, there have been a lot of carjacking in this area, and you just look suspicious. Right. And I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I'm just, like I said, I just came here to drop off my sister and make sure that she's safe. So yeah, they gave me back my, my information, and then they said, yeah, you can't wait here. You gotta go. And it was such a bizarre thing because I was in the parking lot, and I had the right to stay there, but they told me to leave. And I was like, I'm not going to argue. I'm just going to just leave. So then I drove, and then they followed me for about 3 blocks before they turned away. So that was one experience that I've had, and there's more of them actually, but that's one that sticks out for me. And they say they're doing their job, it's profiling, and you look suspicious, so they do. So they put it under that tense, but it's not like I was, it's not like I was dressed like a gangster or anything like that. I have no record. Actually, I don't have, I have a very clean driving record, and all these things, but, they're doing their job. So.
And Hafeez, you said a term was smiling racism. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
What exactly is that?
Smiling racism is the nuances of under this pretense of being nice, right? That, oh, like, you know, everything's all good, but behind your back they're judging you. And so examples of that I've experienced in the corporate world, in the work environment, these little micro aggressions or micro racism, I guess you could say. In that well, one example was I was going on a trip, and you know, I've never been to the city before, so it was a new city I've never been to before. And then they're like, oh, are you gonna enjoy it there? And you know, the women there, you're gonna love the women. And you know how you guys do, you know, right? I'm like, well, no, I don't know what we do. Like, what do you mean by that? Right? So that's a subtle thing, right? And the way that's pretense is in a way that's very subtle. It's like a joke, right? Comes off as a joke, but really it's like, no, like, that's not cool. You're implying that because I'm black and I'm a black man, that means that I'm a womanizer, and you know, and I have that lifestyle, that behavior. That's inappropriate. It's not professional at all, right? So little things like that, you know, um, stereotypes, right? Stereotypes of like, oh, you're tall, you must play basketball, you know, or you like chicken, right? You know, those little things, right? That comes across as like, yeah, that's funny and smiles, but you know, like, no, like it's actually pretty hurtful. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Nuke, what about yourself?
Yeah, so both my parents are from Ghana as well. And I've lived, I grew up in Edmonton, California, Calgary, and then Kuwait was where I graduated. And then, you know, I would say I was most aware of it when I went to the Middle East and being different and being in a different culture and having to try to fit in and still be my own individual self. And then it wasn't until I left and went to college and I started standing on my own 2 feet, you know, and really figuring out who I am and how do I want to show up in this world, that you just start realizing these low key subtle things. And just like Hafeez said, I've never had full on a racist remark or been treated less than equal, you know, word for word. However, has it been these subtle jabs and, you know, these stereotypes? Yeah, 100%. I don't think any person of color hasn't gone through some form of that in any walk of their life, you know, especially when you get older and you're standing on your own 2 feet, trying to be an active contributing member of society, you know. And Hafeez and I have talked about this, and we like to think for the most part, people are generally just trying to connect and be and show support and want to be a part of the community. However, how they go about that isn't always the best way, you know? And like how saying, case in point, like, you're tall, you must like basketball. Do you play? Who do you support? And then you just flip the script and you're like, yeah, actually, I don't play basketball. So now what? Now you just look like an idiot, you know? And it's just not, you don't judge a book by its cover. Even if the cover looks like it could be word for word, he fits every stereotype, that is a slap in the face to that person and what they've gone through, you know? And so I think it just takes a conscious mind to be like, hey, yes, you may fit this profile in my head. However, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and generally ask you, hey, what's your story? What are you about?
Awesome. Thanks for that. And I forgot to preface it at the beginning, everybody, but my surgeon is supposed to call me after this, but they kind of run on their own schedule sometimes. So if I jump off abruptly, that's why. Thanks again, Nuke, for sharing. And a story that I wanted to go over quickly was, I think it was a couple weeks ago, you guys had an experience where there were some girls that came up to you and were saying those, you know, some of those things. If you guys must be athletes, so you play basketball. Can you just give a quick recap on what happened there?
Go ahead, Nuke.
Okay, so basically we had gone for a walk in the park, myself, Hafeez and Andy, and we were returning back to our cars. And these two older women, I would say like my mom's age, like early 50s, you know, maybe late 40s, came out with their dogs, and they're like, and they had smiles, and just generally, hey boys, how you doing? What are you up to? And then obviously like they looked at the three of us and, you know, just assumed that we were all athletes. And I mean, they looked at Hafeez and I and looked at Hafeez and like, you're tall. Like, what sports do you play? And And they looked at me and what about you? And, you know, and again, like they were just trying to create connection and community. And I get that, you know, and their dogs were there and we were talking with their dogs and touching and giggling and laughing. However, how it was approached, you know what I mean, isn't the most tasteful of ways to go about it, right? I get it, you know, we've just come out of coronavirus and people are out. I shouldn't say we're out of it, but we're allowed to be out and about, you know, and people want to connect. People want to be social. It's just, was that the best way to have gone about that? No, because, you know, if Hafeez and I weren't as open and as conscious and healthy as we are in our mindset and attitude, we could have taken that the wrong way. You know what I mean? And just been like, why would you say that? We don't play sports, and just made and escalated that to be a very social, political, you know what I mean? Like, just don't be racist, don't be However, Hafeez and I and Andy are able to like see past that and see their hearts and just see they're genuinely just trying to build connection. And that is the best way they know how. And so we will meet them where they're at. And then we just transitioned it very quickly to, hey, how's your day going? What are you guys up to? Okay, cool. We have to like, we're taking off. Enjoy the park. All the best later. And so to like wrap it round, I think for the conscious, healthy Black individual, you just have to be willing to respond and not react, because it's so easy to react and then it's us versus them, versus just responding and being okay, can I be the leader here and distill what is happening, and then, you know, find common ground where we can not talk to our profiles, you know what I mean, or go beyond just what you see aesthetically. Hafeez, what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, like I love that. That was it was well said. You know, like it's really about the nuances. It's really about the intentionality, right, of how that's being communicated. And like what Nuke said, we picked it up that it was just a genuine connection. They just wanted just to connect, and there was no malice in there. And you know, when it comes to like vibes, you know, like just on a general basis, like you can feel the intent of what the person's intentions are, right? When it comes to communicating, like it's not just the words, it's the tone and it's the body language. And you know, we picked that up, and it was like it was positive. And that's the thing too, as well too, is that awareness is the key component of that, is being aware of and not just your body as well too, your breath and everything, but also the person as well too, the situation, the surroundings. We're in a park, and you know, they have your dogs, and it's just, you know, so all these situational awareness as well too, you know, picking up on that and being able to communicate off of that, right? And picking and choosing your battles as well too, right? I like to think of it as teachable moments, right? Like when it's like, okay, is this appropriate, right? Like, is this, you know, from where this person's coming from, right? So that's how I take it when it comes to situations that may, you know, that may appear to be like, okay, like this is this is wrong, but you know, like where is it coming from, right? So that's another thing too, is being able to discern that, rather than just jump in and be like, hey, that's wrong and that's this. So yeah, that awareness piece is important. So yeah,
for sure. And I guess trying to just dig a level deeper too, and for somebody that would maybe say, you know, like what's wrong with asking if you're an athlete, or, you know, in their mind, it actually being a compliment. Can you dig a little bit deeper onto that, of just explaining why?
Well, I would say like there's certain things that happen that are unconscious, right? Like for example, like a black person's walking down the street, right? You know, a white person sees that and they just instinctively just cross the street, right, to avoid that person, right? And they don't think much about it; they just do it. Like there are these unconscious behaviors, um, these yeah, these behaviors that you just are. It just happens. It just comes out of like nowhere without thinking about it, right? So those are the things that are, you know, are like dependent on the situation to bring that up, to bring that awareness to that, right? To know that, oh, why did I say that? Where does that come from? Right, as opposed to like, oh, okay, like you're built, you know, like your body's built like a like a sprinter. I could see that, like I've had that. Like I am an athlete. I did track for 10 years. Like, yeah, like absolutely. I was an athlete for sure, but it's just like where does that come from? Where does that, like, another example that I guess would be a better way of prefacing that would be, oh, you're tall, like you built like a runner. You must be a runner, right? I'm like, yeah, absolutely, right? As opposed to this assumption kind of thing. Like, where does this assumption come from? Where do you get like those undertones, right?
So I love, Hafeez, how you said that, because I completely agree. As long as it's coming from like a genuine place of curiosity, you know, and it's part of the natural dialogue, then yes. However, if that's your door opening conversation, then you're judging a book by its cover,
Right.
right? However, if you're able to be like, yo, exactly like Hafeez says, yo, you're built like a runner, da 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 da. Like I used to run. Are you an athlete? Do you see what I'm saying? Even that like tone and the pitch and the preface and da 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 da, right off the bat. Now, from Hafeez's point of view, we are all on common ground now, and I know you're not coming at me arms swinging, right? Versus if you just come in, you know, from this like vantage point, and it just doesn't. Again, like your intention isn't that of curiosity. It's more judging or shaming or this superiority complex. It's like, yo, like we can all feel that. And it's like, okay, fine. I'm going to fight fire with fire to the unconscious individual. However, to the conscious individual, this is where you just need to be willing to respond. Because it happens all the time. And like the thing I have come to realize is like, a lot of people have a nervous system of that of a child. And like a child, you know, it just looks and calls it out how they see it. And they honestly don't mean to be rude or politically correct. So that's part of it as well, of just being able to distill that information. And so those of us that are leaders, that are conscious, that are whole, that are healthy, we need to, in these split seconds, as Hafeez says, be aware of our environment, of our situation, of what's being communicated, how it's being communicated. And then in that moment, be like, okay, this is genuinely the curiosity of a 6-year-old. Fine, I will meet it with curiosity as well. As opposed to, if a 6-year-old tells you you're ugly, you know, do you react to be like, no, you're ugly? No,
Well said.
no. You know, like
Yeah.
you get down on one knee and you're like, hey, young man, young lady, where is that coming from? Let's talk. And they're like, well, you know, and then you just get conversational. I think there's not enough. No, not I think. I know there's not enough of us that are responding and being willing to lead the conversation as opposed to just responding and throwing our hands up, be like, I'm offended, and that's it. How about I'm offended and let's have a conversation? Hey, you triggered me and let's have a conversation. Not you triggered me and that's it. I don't want to talk about it. Jared, you're a racist. You don't know any better and this conversation is done. No, like we don't move our species forward.
Yeah.
For sure.
I hate that, you know, like you mentioned, like when someone pulls a race card just cause,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not healthy at all, you know. And what's the intention behind it, right? Like, is it to, are you pointing something out for the sake of just to cause an uproar, or is it to harmonize, to have a teachable moment, right? So that's a big one too, right? Like, I do know people that just pull it out just cause, you know, like, oh, because I'm black or because of this. Like, well, what are you going with that? All you're doing is creating more tension, more separation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As opposed to connect and to have a understanding.
Is there anything that you guys would say, a person, a white person, or someone that's not of color, who feel like they're in that situation, and that the race card has been pulled just to pull the race card, as you guys were talking about? Is there anything to respond, or is that more so just accepting the situation?
I would say that, like, in terms of the situation, I think that, I guess if I put myself in that shoes, hypothetically, I would definitely would communicate that. I'd be like, hey, like, this is not my intention. This is where I'm coming from. That's a starting point, as opposed to, and yeah, I mean, it depends on the person, depends on the situation. If the person is argumentative and doesn't want to listen, then you may as well be talking to the wall. Then it's not worth having a conversation. I think that it all comes back down to the intention, right? Because things can be lost in words, lost in translations, right? Misunderstanding. So I think that communicating that, that, hey, this is not what I meant, this is not what it is, and starting from there.
Yeah. I agree with Hafeez and what Hafeez is saying. And to add on that, I would say, when it comes to sticky conversations, muddy conversations, a great preface can never do you wrong. A great preface will never do you wrong. And just be like, hey, listen to my heart when I say this. Can I ask you this question? When you say something like that, okay, cool. Now I'm prepared mentally to receive, right? Versus if you just come out, why are all black people? No. You're just like, okay, that's racist. I don't want to hear it. And again, to the unconscious individual, that's how they're going to react. Versus you have a great preface. Now, guess what, dude? You've controlled what you can control. Hey, I realize I'm bringing up a sticky conversation. Listen to my heart when I say this. I generally have a question about curiosity. Can I ask? Boom. You see what I'm saying? Before you even ask it, give it that preface if you know it's sticky. And then from there, what you say after that, dude, that is up to them and their own filter system. You see what I'm saying? Because after that, man, like, dude, like, what more do you want me to say or do? Right? Like, I generally have a curious question. So I'm trying to be as open, as transparent as possible. After that, dude, they're just being ignorant. And for that, I will look at you and be like, dude, you've done your homework. However, if we're just talking about, like, I don't know, sports and food, like, you don't have to give a preface, like, you know what I mean? So again, it just comes back to, like, these sticky, uncomfortable, these brave conversations we need to have. A great preface goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I like how you explain that as a preface. Wow, I can't talk. But, it's not the no offense, but, it's not, it's communicating your intentionality. It's not an excuse. It's not a get out of jail free card. So thank you for that. And, kind of continuing on with the unconscious, things that are done. Hafeez, one thing that you brought up on one of the other conversations that we've had is, saying phrases like, I don't see color, right? Where, they think that they're coming from a good place, but it's actually, harmful and not helpful. Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more to that and explaining that and some of the other phrases that are similar?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, to say that I don't see color is to, it's such a, it sounds so good, when you say that, because it's about unity and, we're all the same and all that, like, on the macro level, like, absolutely. Right. Like, in terms of the spiritual aspects, but, like, on the micro level, right, in the physical and what's happening, right, there's inequality, there's injustice. And to say that, oh, I don't see color, you also, in that case, there's a good meme actually that I saw, actually, and it was well done, and it said, you don't see color, but what it is that you don't see the patterns that's actually really happening. So you miss out on what's going to happen. What happens is that, whoa, like, there's a lot more, like even, when it comes to police brutality, like even in Toronto, right? 25% of police shootings are related to Black communities, right? Police shootouts there, right? Like, to say that, oh, I don't see color, and to just to put it all with one stroke of a brush, right? That's dismissive, right? And in that case, it's, you put it on blinders, be like, yep, I don't see. Well, what's the one of those monkeys that are like, I see no evil, hear no evil, and
Yes.
like you're shielding yourself, you're putting yourself in a little bubble, which is not reality.
Yep.
Okay? So, and it's denial. It's denial. It's there's a term, I'm not sure if you heard of it, it's called white fragility. It was a term that's basically it's this sort of reluctance to like any when a conversation gets uncomfortable, it's like, whoa, what about other people, or like even like all lives matter, for example, is which was created after Black Lives Matter as this sort of counter movement to minimize the fact that, hey, like, there's been many examples, about like saying all lives matter. It's like, there's a burning building, the church's building is burning, right? And it's like, well, all buildings matter. Like, no, like, of course, all buildings matter, but this one here is on fire. We need to put this one out, right? And yes, like it's so these terms that are used to sort of I guess to minimize it, and to really create this sense of denial that no, everything is all good in my world, and there's this sense of just being comfortable, right? And I think another thing as well too is with when it comes to like white privilege, and like that brings this level of insulation, right? Insulation of like the color of my skin and the privileges that I have, all these things that that you're born into. You don't even necessarily have to think about it, right? Like all these things that are taken for granted until like you take a step back and you look at it, and you'd be like, whoa, like it's part of the whole system, right? So having these conversations, which are very uncomfortable, right? No one wants to have these. Everybody wants to be comfortable. We're constantly creating, we're constantly how'd I put it? Like we're avoiding pain, right? Yeah, absolutely. We all don't want to deal, but leaning into it, right? Leaning into it and having that discussion. That's where it starts, right? That level of that. So, yeah.
So, Jared, if I may, there's two, and Hafeez, well said. There's two things that come to mind when you ask this question. One, you don't see color. Listen, when a white light hits a prism, it diffracts, right? And what do you get? Roy G. Biv. So come on, you guys. Like, it can't be this, I don't see color. No, like that's a slap in the face to all the other colors of the rainbow. If that was the case, it would all be black and white. Or it would just be, you know what I mean? So like, to me, it's a cop-out, and you are, as Hafeez said really well, you are self-insulating so that you don't have to, be uncomfortable or address the reality that is apparent for other people. So that's one. Two, you don't want to have these uncomfortable conversations? Then guess what? Let's eradicate all of the social injustice. Then we don't have to have these uncomfortable, like that's the thing that's blown my mind. People don't want to address racism, color, hatred, I don't know, what is it? Wage disparities, people not being treated properly, civil rights, I don't know what. Then you know what? Let's just eradicate it all. Let's have that perfect world. Then guess what? These aren't an issue. Then everybody's treated with love and respect and equality. And everybody is seen and heard and valued. And there's nobody living in a wage disparity. Let's actually then do the work so that we don't have to have these conversations. So the conversations that we do have are, hey, how do we move our species forward to the next level? As opposed to us dealing with and I say this very consciously, very, very rudimentary mindset and attitude about being human. Like civil rights, come on. That to me is the most basic, like, that's the first brick you put down when you're building a foundation. How are we still coming back to this? So to me, it's like we are a very primitive race in that sense. I shouldn't say race. We are very primitive people. If we are still having questions about some people, and Michael Che said it very well in his comedic sketch. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but he's like, there are some people that are like, man, everybody deserves to be equal. And some people are like, nah, man, I disagree. There are actually people that believe that. So to me, we are very primitive in that sense.
For sure. And thank you both for sharing that. And just something that I wanted to share quickly because they helped me get a deeper understanding. And I shared them with you guys already, but I wanted to share them again of, the first one being, especially to the all lives matter thing. And I feel like it's a very knee-jerk reaction of the idea that acknowledging somebody else's trauma doesn't take away from your own.
Well said.
And then the second one was just because you don't understand something or just because you haven't seen something doesn't mean that it's not true and it doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so now what would you guys tell people who say, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to help? And Hafeez, actually, one of your posts recently really helped me of all the different roles, that people can play. If it's not one role that go into change.
Absolutely.
So maybe if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, there's so much going on, with the protest and everybody has a role to play. Like, you don't have to be on the front lines and to show that you support the cause, you support the whole thing. Like, there's people in the background that that have different things. Like, are you, like, I mean, if you have that, I don't know, if you have the, I don't know, like, if you have that, the visionary, right? Like, the one that can see the vision and articulate it, right? There's the counselor one, the one that can have, can have these one-on-one conversations, right? The healers and the first responders. So, like, everybody has a role to play, right? One is not better than the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just being able to honor that, right? Like, you have, like, for example, like, say a mother with 2 kids at home, and she wants to be part of, she wants to be part of the movement, and she wants to join the protest. But no, you got 2 kids, stay at home. That's where you should be, right? Like, you can give a call to the local government, right? You can donate to various causes, right? If you're more, as opposed to another person that is more, more energy, right? More younger, right? Then yeah, for sure, go to the protest, right? Join the protest. Be smart about it as well too. I don't want to say, yeah, just go, like, be smart about it and, follow the rules and peacefully protest. Like, with all the looting and the violence going on, like, that's definitely something that is I don't condone. That does not help the cause at all. But yeah, like, everybody has a role to play, and I think that there's this sort of pressure. Like, I know I felt that a little bit with myself too. Like, oh, I should be in the lines, I should be doing all these things, right? But, like, just having this conversation, like this is part of it. We're all doing it in our own way, right? And I guess also, like, in terms of just in general as well too, as just being proactive, in terms of trying to understand, like, it's just being proactive with compassion and just being just being willing to listen and getting educated on these topics. There's a lot of documentaries on Netflix. There's a lot of literatures, right? Being able to, like, that's the start. That's the beginning of it, I would say. Yeah.
To chime in on there, what comes to mind here, and I'm very conscious of what I'm saying here, and it's this mindset of, like, in Christianity, there's a saying of, like, we are all part of the body of Christ. And that mindset is, listen, the eyes don't look at the feet and be like, oh my goodness, like, what are you doing? You do nothing for us. You know what I mean? And likewise, the feet aren't looking at your core and be like, what do you even do here? No, listen, the feet have a purpose and an intention, you know what I mean? And without them, we wouldn't be able to march, you know? Our hands and our fingertips, they also have a role, and it's very specific and different from our eyes. Our nose has a different, you see what I'm saying? And so, yeah, case in point, Hafeez, with what he posted, is listen, what can you do in your community, in your world, you know what I mean? The best way that you know how. Because for all we know, you being on the front lines isn't for you, and you're not about that life. However, maybe low key, you are super good at posting media content. And so you get behind an organization like, hey, how can I help on the back end? Boom. Someone else is like, hey, you know what? I'm not for being on the front line. However, I have I work in a kitchen, and I can be providing meals and what have you to our frontline workers and da-da-da-da-da. And then there's someone else who's like, listen, I am used to being in the kitchen, but I have all the time in the world to be on the front lines. And what's the message? Where do I need to be? You tell me, I'll rally the team and we'll be there. So I can't look at what Hafeez is doing and be like, oh, I need to do that. And if I'm not doing that, I'm any lesser to the cause. No. And it's just like how we say with King of Hearts, Jared, and and Hafeez is a part of it, reimagine what your role can look like and then go execute in your respective community, because that's what your community needs from you.
Yeah.
Be the change you want to see day in and day out. And if you have that perspective, then you're not so much focused on the macro, you're focused on the micro. And a bunch of micro paper cuts, if we're all doing it day in and day out, will eventually lead to the macro, which is what? The change that we want to see.
I love that, and thank you for that. And Nuke, I really have to commend you because, in our men's group here on Monday, you were the one that kind of led the charge of opening it up to everybody to ask the questions or their thoughts or what they've been feeling. And so, I just wanted to get your thoughts on. I've heard a lot of people say that they've felt shamed or they've felt pressured to do specific actions or on their inaction or whatever it might be. Can you both of you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, real quick. Once again, for me, it's always just be the change you want to see, to put it simply, And so one example, I've had a couple conversations with people is, listen, blacking out your IG, for example, listen, if that means nothing to you, then don't do it because of social pressure to act or because all of IG is doing that. No, that's an absolute disconnect and doesn't do anything for the cause. You know what I mean? Because to me, the disconnect is, yes, you black out your IG and then nothing in the rest of your lifestyle coincides with that mindset and attitude. Now for a handful of Black people that do it, I get it. Because guess what? This isn't just a phase that's going to last for a week. No, this is a lifestyle that we've been living for what? Over 450, let's just say over 400 years, right? And maybe, yes, Hafeez and I haven't been in the trenches like some of our ancestors, like a Nelson Mandela, like a Martin Luther King, like a Malcolm X, like a Harriet Tubman. Yes, 100%. However, it's still in our DNA, still in our blood, right? And so to answer your question real quick, everybody just be the change you want to see. And it's honestly, at this point in time, it's going to be water droplets. It's water droplets. That's the effect, like it or not. And if we're all doing that on a micro scale, eventually there will be momentum. And it's just like interest. It will compound itself and it will skyrocket. However, all of us that are conscious, Jared, have to keep showing up. Because like I always say, those of us that are conscious, if we take a day off, then what? Then guess what? Complacency, fear, shame get in the way. And those overpower us. So those guys don't take a day off. So how can we? How can we? Hafeez, go.
And how do I? That was well said, man. Like, wow. Yeah, I guess what I can add to that is that I don't necessarily agree with guilting, people to say something and to speak up on it, because everybody has their own way. I think that by forcing someone and guilting them to say, oh, I feel bad or whatnot, they're acting. They're not, it's disingenuous, right? As opposed to them feeling compelled within themselves to do that. There's a big difference there, right? And it's, authenticity. That's where that is, right? And what else? And I guess to add to that too, like there's also the embodiment as well too. So the embodiment in terms of like to really sit with those emotions of like what it is that comes up, the uncomfortability, right? Being able to sit with it, as opposed to being in our heads and intellectualizing it, being like trying to teach our brains to think that we should do better and we should have all these policies and we should do this and we should do that. Like, yes, that is important. However, though, there's a disconnect. Are you like, what parts do you see that you contribute to that? The moment you see yourself being like, yeah, I could see that, I could see that level of racism. I could see that within myself, how I could lead to that point. It's very uncomfortable. That's what shadow work, right? That kind of work to be like, yeah, like I get it. And recognize that within yourself and having that compassion and understanding. Once you have that, you like that level of conviction, right, of taking action and whatever it is that comes out from it is more will come across in a way that is authentic and being able to make a difference, right? That's when people will really care, as opposed to like, yeah, this is terrible and rah rah rah. Like, whoa, like, are you feeling it? Are you in your body?
Yep.
Right. So yeah.
For sure. And kind of in the same vein, and something actually that came up in our men's group discussion is, people almost feeling afraid to act, with the potential for blowback, and then using that, again, the black square on the Instagram post, right? Of, some people getting behind it and wanting to take action and then doing it, and then feeling that blowback of either they did it improperly or that they shouldn't actually be posting it. And, sometimes that the fear of blowback leading to inaction. Are you guys able to speak on that at all?
I think that when it comes to that, like that level of fear, like you gotta, like with anything, right? You learn to ride a bike, you're gonna fall, you're gonna scrape your knee, you're gonna like, right? Like you're gonna get the feedback, right? And it's through that feedback that we're able to learn and move from it. So I get it. Yeah, that fear is there. I don't want to offend, right? But again, it goes back to the intentionality. My intention here is to learn, to try to understand. And Nuke, I think you said, hear my heart. This is what like preface it that way, right? How you preface it, be like, hey, like I don't know this, but what do you think about this, right? Like it comes down to that, right? Like, yeah, this fear, like we gotta get through. You gotta get over that. Like there's no like this is we gotta move through this. We need to get through this. We need to come together, right? Yeah. And yeah, like no matter what, you're gonna like what you say or whatnot, someone's gonna be hating on that. There's always gonna be haters.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And there's two types of feedback, right? There's there's the criticism, right? You can take it or leave it, right? You can look at it, be like, yeah, I'll take this. This is useful. I can adjust. I can pivot from it, right? The rest of it, you can leave. Even compliments as well too. Like, that's also, I mean, that's the better stuff for sure. But don't let that get to your head and be complacent and whatnot, right? Just take it and be like, okay, this is good feedback, right? Like it's always about for me anyways, I always like to look at things in a sense of balance, right? Like you don't want to be up here or down here, like it's this equilibrium, right?
Yeah.
So,
something, sorry,
yeah.
go on, Hafeez.
No, go on. Yeah.
So I was going to say something to add to that is, excuse me, is this willingness to be okay with being misunderstood if you're speaking your truth. You see what I'm saying? And let's be honest, anytime you go against what is consensus, you're gonna get backlash. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If everybody likes apples and you say you like oranges, everyone's gonna be like, oh, that's stupid. How do you like, it doesn't matter. So for me, it's a matter of, listen, know what you're getting yourself into. And if you want to post, then be willing to deal with the repercussions of that. Right? Just like, that's the reality of it. Welcome to freedom of speech. This is one of the opportunity costs of freedom of speech. Like it or not, you let everyone be able to say something, fine. You better have the balls then, male or female, to then stand behind what you're posting. That's one. And then two, how do you circumvent that? You have community and connection that you can like, hey, Jared, I want to post this. What are your thoughts on that? Does this make sense? Hafeez, what are your thoughts on that? Okay, cool. Oh, I never thought of that. Okay, cool. I'll tweak it. How about now? Make sense? Cool. As long as I know that my boys have my back, I don't care what anybody else says. I don't, because guess what? You haven't gone through what we've gone through. You don't know the mindset, the attitude. You don't know the campaign. So how can I let someone who doesn't know, what the three of us are going through and what we're working on get in the way of the mission, the vision? No way. No way. So therefore, yeah, know what you're getting yourself into whenever you post or you show up to a protest or whatever you're doing in your respective community, and then have connection and community to then be able to run that, use them as your filter system. Because then if not, then you're just doing a disservice, one, to the human species, and two, to your higher self.
Thank you for that. And just in the last couple of minutes here, if I could just get both of your, final thoughts, anything that we haven't touched on that you want to say, and then maybe if you have, one, call it tangible thing that people that want to help and want to make a difference can do in their lives.
Wow. I would say that, again, going back to compassion, it doesn't bringing yourself down. This is for white people that want to be, that want to help. I think that, yes, acknowledging, white privilege, but that sense of guilt and bring yourself down, like I like one person put a post, say, oh, I feel ashamed of my whiteness. Why would you put that? That's bringing yourself down. That's not helpful at all. Like that's not the space that that does not do any justice at all. No. Right. It is, what can you do is the acknowledging piece. Right. And then from there, right, being willing to move up from there, be like, okay, like this is what this is, like, what can I do to help? What can I do? Right. And from there, right, that's the space to be in. Right. So being proactive, right, and being self-aware, right, with your with the nuances. Where in my life do I have these prejudiced thoughts? Right. Where does it come from? Right. Being willing to critique yourself. Right. That piece there. And being willing to listen, right? Being willing to just sit and just listen, because, right, and educating yourself. Those are the three points: the self-awareness piece, right, and then being willing to listen, right? Have these conversations, being willing to have teachable moments. I don't want to say call out the person, because that just makes the person uncomfortable. I think Andy said this, to call up, right? Call up, being like, hey, like that's, as opposed to for the sake of shaming them, making them feel bad. Have teachable moments, right? Yeah, I think that's it. Educate, always be learning. Definitely start with. There's a lot of good documentaries out there on Netflix for sure. So, yeah.
Beautiful. I completely agree with Hafeez. I'm not going to add anything to that. And I just want to give shout outs to Jared, because Jared, this is what it looks like, man. Being willing to put yourself out there and to have a conversation with two Black men that a year ago you didn't know, and through community and connection, we've built a trust and a level of understanding that we can sit here and have a conscious, healthy dialogue, right? And look at each other man to man, eyeball to eyeball, and know that there's nothing but love, respect, and a genuine curiosity of, hey, how can I be better? Dude, if everybody did that, our species would look different. So high fives and butt taps to you, Jared, because this is what it looks like on a micro scale. And yes, you don't have to have a podcast session or have a Zoom call session that you post every whatever. It's just, hey, in our day-to-day interactions, where can we create a safe space to have brave conversation around these sticky topics? Boom. And you're doing the work, man. So my hat is literally off to you, because this is what it looks like day in and day out. So I second what Hafeez said, and I just want to say thank you for creating a safe space to allow two Black men to have a conversation with a white man about this topic, who's willing to hold space and genuinely ask thought-provoking questions and wants to be better. So love and respect you, man.
Thank you. And I wanted to say a big thank you to both of you. One, for opening up the space to ask ask these uncomfortable questions and have the uncomfortable discussions. And two, truly for opening my eyes to how unconscious I was. And I'm sorry for that. And I will do better. And I thank you guys, and I love both of you. And I appreciate both of you. And thanks so much again.
Amen, my dude. Amen. We love you too, man.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you guys.
No worries, bro.
Yeah.